Alright, so to use lots of equations as aquarists, and aquarists are people who take care of aquariums, and so math is very important to us. One of the ways that we use equations is to determine water quality and to make sure that our water is good for environment for our fish that are in there. We want to make sure that they stay happy and healthy. And so one of the things that we measure is dissolved oxygen. All animals everywhere, even fish, need oxygen to breathe. And so the amount of oxygen in the water is really important. Unfortunately, in water, oxygen is much lower than in air. So we have to make sure that we have enough for our fish to survive. So, for example, air can have 150 milligrams per liter of oxygen, but the water can be 10 times less than that. So it can have 15 milligrams per liter of oxygen, and that's really high. So how do we deal with that? Well, the raw number doesn't tell the whole story. And what we need to do is we need to calculate a percentage, because what happens is that water that's colder actually holds more oxygen. And we want to make sure always that our fish are in as high of an oxygen environment as we can. So for an example, let's say we measured the oxygen in the tank behind me, and it was 7.5 milligrams per liter. If it was that number, then we would go to a chart and we would say, okay, what temperature is the water? The temperature, let's say, is 30 degrees Celsius, or 82 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So if the water temperature is that, then the chart tells us that the water can hold up to 7.5 milligrams per liter of oxygen. So if we measured 7.5 and it can hold up to 7.5, we divide the 7.5 that we measured by the 7.5, that's the maximum volume or amount. We multiply that by 100 and get our percentage. That's going to give us 100% in that example. Now, what happens if that water is colder? So if the water is around 22 degrees Celsius or about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, then the amount of oxygen that it holds is around 8.75 milligrams per liter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 7.5 that we measured, divide it by the 8.75, and multiply that by 100, and that gives us 86%. And if our oxygen level is 86% and it's not 100, then we want to add some kind of oxygen to the water. So whether that's an air stone, or we can add pure oxygen right to the water to increase that value. So that's why it's really important to know what the percentage is, because we always want to make sure it's up around 100% to make sure that our fish have as much oxygen as they need to be happy and healthy. Unfortunately, if the oxygen level is too low, then our fish can become stressed, and they can be susceptible to disease and infections. And if that happens, if we lose some fish because of that we otherwise would have kept healthy, then our facility has to spend a little more money because we have to collect or purchase more fish. As well as, of course, it's more ethical to keep the fish that are in the aquarium happy and healthy so that we don't have to replace them and make sure that we're giving them the proper environment.